Well, good evening. I'm Dwan, and thanks for dropping in for Experience Mid-Valley Fellowship, kind of our weekly look into what's happening in support programs on Tuesday nights. And I am here with Dwight and with Justin, and they're going to tell you a little bit about the lessons they're facilitating tonight. So Dwight, what group are you facilitating a lesson for tonight?
So I'm facilitating the lesson for Clean Heart. Clean Heart is for men who struggle with addiction or involvement with pornography. And so tonight, and that's a 2-year program. And so tonight I have the year 2 guys, and we're looking at our workbook called Faithful and True by Mark Lasser. And we're going to be talking about relational health, relational and shame, and then developing healthy relational intimacy. And so those are the 2 subjects we're going to be talking about.
Mm-hmm. How does shame affect relational intimacy?
Well, shame causes us, when we have shame in our lives, why we resist the urge to meet with other people and be out and interact with other people. And so it just really impacts us on a social basis too. And so some people are just really struggle with being around other people. And when you struggle with shame and the guilt that goes along with that, why it just really almost paralyzes you for talking about it. And so the best thing what we can do is we recognize some of the traits that are associated with it, and we talk about that. And the best way to battle something is to know what the traits are, what your triggers are. And so that's what we do, is we identify those and we talk about them.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's kind of that picture of that we're designed for relational intimacy and connection, right?
Yes.
And so it's good to kind of work through those things that get in the way of that and make it and hinder us in relationship.
For sure. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. And then Justin, what group are you facilitating for tonight?
Taking back ground year 1, and it's a lesson on rejection, the root of rejection.
So what is the Taking Back Ground group about, or who is that for?
That is for people that struggle with same-sex attraction.
Okay. And so then you're teaching on root of rejection. So what's that? I mean, I could kind of guess what that's about, but what's that about?
Yeah, so it's about all the ways that people deal with rejection. And a lot of times people struggle with same-sex attraction. They really have a hard time with rejection, and it causes them further isolation in their life, and it causes them all kinds of issues with unforgiveness, and a lot of those turn into cycles where they start going on a downward cycle, and it kind of repeats itself, where more isolation leads to more isolation and unforgiveness, and they end up not being able to relate to others and have healthy relationships. And so this is about breaking those cycles and about learning their identity in the Lord, and understanding that Jesus was a man acquainted with many sorrows and rejection. And so learning to embrace that rejection as a healthy part of life and process it in a godly way, and learn that God knows how it feels. So
very cool. That's good. Yeah, it's interesting because it's actually kind of similar to what Dwight's group is talking about a little bit too. A little bit different spin on it, but kind of some similar things. And actually, I'm going to be teaching for Clean Heart Year 1, and we're going to be doing a lesson called Your Grievance Story, and to look at the story of Mephibosheth in the Old Testament, which if you don't know who he is, that's fine. He's the son of Jonathan, who is the son of King Saul. And so and he was essentially the only person in that lineage that survived whenever Saul and Jonathan died in the same day. And so the story kind of comes in when David has become king, and he wants to bless someone from Saul's household, and so he finds Mephibosheth. And so really it's this picture of that Mephibosheth is off kind of in this isolated, desolate place, in a place of aloneness, a place of isolation, which again is similar to what you guys are talking about. And that David's servant goes and kind of pulls him out of that place of isolation and calls him into a place of sitting at the king's table, a place of honor, a place of restoration, which is a great picture for what God likes to do in our lives too, is that we often end up in those places of isolation, of desolation, and we can feel trapped there and stuck there, and God kind of comes and yank, the word is like yank, or to rip out of that place of isolation and desolation. And so we're going to talk about that, and then also kind of the part of that is this place of realizing there are things that happened to us in life, that certainly there's plenty of things that we made choices that were not healthy and that ended us up in problematic places. But there's also things that we experienced, wounds and wounding in our lives that affected our interaction with the world, right? And so those sort of damaging experiences, and they implant lies about ourselves, about God, about other people. And so really beginning to look at, okay, what are those lies that I picked up from those experiences that I had that were then reinforced throughout my life, that I then am living out of in the ways that I interact with people. And so we're back to that place of really interacting with God or interacting with other people, that based on those lies I can see myself or God or others in kind of skewed perspectives. And so this is beginning kind of looking into that a little bit of like, okay, what are the grievances you've experienced, and what are the things, not so much from a standpoint of saying, I had all these wounds and everybody should feel sorry for me, though there is certainly compassion in that, but there's a place of saying, and those experiences taught me things that were not true, and I've lived out of those. And so how do I then sort of shift and embrace God's truth about those different areas? And then that affects the way that I live, right? If I'm living out of the truth rather than out of a lie, it's going to affect myself and the people around me and my relationship with God and all of that. So anyway, so those kind of three pieces tonight. We also have Hope Together for spouses of those who are struggling with sexual addiction, and Mending the Soul for survivors of sexual abuse. And they're tackling different topics tonight as well. I'll give you a little preview. Next week, the lesson is on forgiveness, which is a huge thing. And, Justin mentioned it in his lesson, and it's part of this grievance story. There's a place of forgiving those who wronged us, but that's an all-together group lesson. And so for tonight and also for next week, we really value your prayers and really appreciate that. We realize that this is a huge spiritual battle that happens as we help people to encounter God on a deeper level and really encounter other people too. So we value your prayers, and thanks for dropping in, and we will see you next time.
Let's get some food.